And welcome back to Live from the Clinic here behind the barn door at the Barn Theatre, Cirencester. I'm Dr Dawn Harper, and for the next few moments I'm going to be joined by TV presenter and mathematician extraordinaire Rachel Riley. Rachel, hello there. I've not got Rachel's sound at the minute, so I'm going to have to lip read you for a moment, Rachel.
Can you hear me?
Oh, perfect.
Are we working?
We're firing on all cylinders. Listen, thank you so much for giving up your time. We just thought we'd have a few moments just chatting about your incredible career, really. And
well,
a little bit
anymore.
well, and a little bit also about how you're coping, because as a new mum, that's a pressure in its own right. But to suddenly find that you're a new mum in lockdown must have its own challenges, really.
It's different, that's for sure. Our little girl was born, thankfully, before all this happened. So she was born in December. So she's about to turn 5 months. So we managed to, get out, and she got to meet all of her grandparents and some of my friends and have baby dates and all of that before lockdown happened. And I've got friends now that have just, popped babies out in the last couple of weeks, and they haven't got that luxury. They haven't, been able to introduce their new little ones to even their parents. So
and that's just the most unnatural thing in the world, isn't it? The first thing you do is introduce your new arrival to the rest of the family.
Yeah, and it's tricky. I mean, we're lucky in that in some ways, lockdown's enforcing family time. So I can hear her actually waking up, and good job, Pasha's in the background. You can go and look after her. So from that perspective, we've got more time together, which we wouldn't have had otherwise. But in terms of, my mom, every day we're FaceTiming and showing her the baby, and she, they change so quickly at this age, and she's not seen her for what's coming up for 2 months now. So we're following the updates as much as everyone at the moment, and trying to guess when we can actually go around and see our families. But it's a small hardship considering what's going on at the moment.
And have you had, one of the things that we're doing when we're doing our baby clinics, where we see little ones for vaccinations and developmental checks, we're actually doing them in the car park in my surgery. Just trying to minimise footfall through the surgery. So yeah,
we went for our third set of vaccinations with May since lockdown started. So we went there, and thankfully, the clinic was still running, and the nurse just gave her jabs, chucked us out, did all the paperwork, and gave it to us afterwards. I guess in a way, they were cancelling all kinds of medical care, but baby vaccinations were still happening. So that kind of
and it was certainly something we were very mindful of, is that we didn't want to have other infectious illnesses kind of creeping back again because of the implications from lockdown. So, and interestingly, actually, we've seen a lot less other infections because, of course, we're all social distancing and washing our hands. It's not just coronavirus that is damping down as a result. We're seeing less of other infections too, which I guess is a good thing. But anyway, listen, I guess the thing I've got to ask you to start off with is how you've always loved maths, but how did you go from being a mathematician to being a TV presenter? How did that journey start?
It was a bit of a random one, really. I have to think back now. So I did a maths degree at Oxford, and I finished in 2008. So I just got my master's, and they were advertising that they wanted someone to take over from Carol Vorderman because she was leaving. And they said you didn't need any TV experience, you just need to be able to do the numbers game. And I'd watched Countdown since I was a little kid. I used to go home from school, and when it was, the days when it was 4 o'clock, 15 to 1, and then 4:30 Countdown. And I used to play against my little brother instead of doing our homework or whatever we should have been doing. And I just applied. I didn't expect to hear back, and I was applying for loads of grad jobs at the time. And miraculously got the job, and just thought, well, if it all goes wrong, then I've still got my maths degree to fall back on, and I'll, carry on as I would have been otherwise. But as I say, that was 2008 when I got the job. So just enjoying it and enjoying the opportunities it brings.
And I guess everybody's going to want to know, do you get any pre-warning? I guess you can't. Is there a time delay that you're allowed to do a little bit of...
we have a live, pre-coronavirus, we have a live studio audience there. And it's so basic, our set. It's literally magnets. The tiles that I pick up are just magnets face down, shove them up there, and it's a random number generator. So we don't even know that the games aren't all possible. So I can just press the button, and they're no relation to the numbers I've just picked out. And you've got 30 seconds like you see on screen. And that's the fun of the game, really. That's my favourite part of it.
And do you have in your, so you do it all in your head, and do you have
got paper, so I have I read the numbers out, and then I have my lovely set guy standing beside me who scribbles the numbers down, and then the 30 seconds go, and I've got a chance to scribble down if I want to, and keep going until I've got it. Quite obsessive about the numbers.
Excellent. And do you have more than one option on occasions?
In terms of
more than one solution?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm trying to get my solution, and I'm trying to work out all the kind of possible solutions that the contestants could come up with, because then, the more pre-thinking I've done before having to actually work things out on the spot as contestants read out parts of their sums, the better it is and the quicker it is for me to check that they've got it right and just to make it look a bit tidier. Yeah.
So when did you first fall in love with maths?
I think I must have been really little. My mum keeps telling me I had this little computer that I carried around when I was about 4, where you could play numbers games, like little times tables, and do however many you could in 60 seconds or whatever it was. I think maths is one of those subjects that, because there's a right answer and a wrong answer, really early on you can get a few right answers and have loads of confidence and think, oh, this is great, I'm easy at this, and enjoy it because you're getting praise for it. And at the other end of the spectrum, if you're a little bit slower catching on, or if you get a couple of wrong answers, you can get the false impression that maybe maths isn't for me and switch off from it. And that's what kind of I'm trying to do some work around that now, because a lot of the problems that people have into adulthood, and parents trying to help their kids with maths homework now, stems from not having enough confidence. So it's nothing to do with I don't have a maths brain, because that doesn't exist. It's all about how you feel about numbers, and just having a little bit of positivity and the psychology around it, which I find quite interesting and quite an easy way actually to boost people's numeracy.
And I gather it's National Numeracy Day this week?
It is, yeah, on Wednesday, National Numeracy Day. So National Numeracy is a charity that I'm an ambassador for, and they help adults with their numeracy, because in the UK, 1 in 2 or 50% of adults, for a matter, actually have numeracy levels that you would expect of an 11-year-old. And even National Numeracy are fantastic. They have all these resources where you can go online, you can do the challenge in your own time, and you can assess what areas of numeracy. And when I'm talking about numeracy, it's not trigonometry, it's not quantum physics, it's the kind of maths that you need in everyday life or at work. And they've even done a lot of work actually with the NHS. And unfortunately, lack of numeracy competency and lack of knowing how to manipulate numbers does it is a problem in the NHS as well. So they're helping, and you can easily see the practical applications of numeracy there when you're talking about dilutions of medication, or how much you need to give over a certain time frame, or checking BMI or blood pressure, and all sorts of reasons why actually you need to be confident with numbers. So National Numeracy is a really great kind of maths positivity charity that's trying to encourage and just make it less scary. So yeah, I really encourage everyone to have a look on Wednesday. We've got obviously an online festival this year because of everything that's going on, but there are loads of resources, and it's going to be focused on helping your kids with their maths homework, looking at how you can improve your confidence in dealing with your own finances, and also how you can improve numeracy to get on at work. So there's 3 areas that we think people at home might find useful this year.
Excellent. Listening to you talk about that in terms of the NHS, I remember as a junior doctor in paediatrics having to check and double check, because a particular drug had to be given as milligrams per kilogram of baby. Yeah. And then the product came in so many mils per drops per mil or whatever. Yeah. It was, and just, I would have thought that I had I've got a maths A level, I would have thought I had a reasonable grasp of maths, but actually it's sort of 3 and 4 and 5 in the morning. And I remember one day doing the whole calculation and then realising that, crazy silly thing, but the nurse had weighed the baby for me so that I knew what dose to give. Mm-hmm. And thankfully I just suddenly realised that actually she'd given me the weight in pounds.
Right,
and
yeah.
I'd been, and actually something like that could have been catastrophic,
Yeah. And you need to have kind of a basic number sense to see when there are big mistakes like that. And obviously you were confident enough to check it and have a look. But I mean, there's funny examples like Adam Kay in his book. He talks about someone taking someone's blood pressure, and every person they took, it was 60, because they were checking the pulse and counting to 60 as they looked at their watch for a minute. all they were doing with, and things like that. If you've got a feel for numbers, you might see 60, 60, 60, 60, 60. Think something's going wrong here.
Yeah, he's really. I presented an award ceremony with him last year, and it was really poignant. Now, he's such an incredibly funny guy, but when he talked about actually, working in obstetrics, just finished him off. He didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, there's some. I've listened. I like audiobooks. I've listened to both of his books, and thankfully, I did it before I was pregnant. Because some of the stories, I mean, hats off. I mean, that's that was pre-coronavirus as well. But hats off to anyone that can work in those situations day in, day out. And the hours that he was keeping when he was a junior doctor, I don't know how anyone can do it for never mind not much money, not much thanks, and definitely not much social life. So yeah, his books I think are fantastic. They're really eye-opening. He's a good advocate for doctors.
Yeah, he's good. I love your piece of art behind you. What's that?
Thank you. Bit colourful. We like a bit.
It is great.
Yeah, we like that.
Really
lovely.
So tell me, when did Gadget Show come along then? Because for a while we shared a makeup artist. When you were doing the Gadget Show and Embarrassing Bodies was on, lovely Sam was in charge of making us look the part.
I know. No, I have to do it myself. It's terrible. I started doing that in 2012. So it was good fun. I mean, I started on Countdown, as I say. I got the job in 2008 and had absolutely no experience in TV or presenting or anything like that. And the Gadget Show was my first proper break into a different style of presenting. So I'd go up to Birmingham for a couple of days a week, and we'd go and just do the most bonkers things. Testing out different tech, which was great fun, because I mean my interest is through maths. It was always science. It was how can you use maths. It's not kind of the beauty of an equation for me. It's where is this useful in real life, and where can technology take us. So we got to test out the newest gadgets. I mean, mind control gadgets back in 2012, and all sorts of stuff that we had access to was loads of fun. And yeah, I got to stay in Birmingham for a couple of days a week, and it's a great city because I'm in Manchester, around Manchester for Countdown filming. I live in London now, and I was up in Birmingham, so I was travelling around the country and getting to meet different people. And I don't know if you found it, but filming in different parts of the country, if you're filming outside in London and someone spots you, they kind of look away and pretend they haven't seen you, as if they're being rude. You film in Manchester, and they're interested. They have a look, but they don't step into your territory. They just leave you be. In Birmingham, you can be filming by the bull ring. People will come and stand up as you're speaking to camera and look down the lens and go, what are you doing? They're great. But it was good fun filming in Birmingham.
Certainly when we took the truck around with Embarrassing Bodies, we had this huge truck that was fitted out as a clinic. And we certainly the more northern towns seem to be much more friendly, actually, much more engaged. And Cardiff. When we filmed in Cardiff, they were, really, very engaged. It was good fun. But like you, I spent at least one night a week in Birmingham for many years, because that's where we had the main Embarrassing Bodies clinic. So.
Of course, yeah. No, it's fun getting around the country. And Pasha, my husband, he does dance shows, so he's seen more of Britain than I've seen, and it's interesting from his perspective, getting a different reaction from different audiences as he go around the country. And he definitely enjoys going up to Scotland. Scotland's good fun.
Wow. Oh, well, I must come and see him when he's allowed back out again.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, will Maven be bilingual?
We hope so. So Pasha's only speaking Russian to her, and I'm speaking poor Russian and English, obviously. And we had Pasha's mum actually was visiting when lockdown happened from Siberia, so she's still with us because she's been stranded here for an extended period of time. So Maeve's getting an extra dose of Russian, and hopefully she just won't pick up my accent, because that'd be awful. But
how good is your Russian?
Ni plokha, ni хорошо.
Wow.
Not bad, not good.
Okay.
I mean, I love learning languages, and it's kind of, the way my brain works. I like puzzles and patterns, and it's certainly a puzzle. It's quite different to any of the European languages, so French or Latin that I did at school. It's just totally different. But
But
It's
it'll be
fun.
so good for her, won't it? You know, to just have that. I used to have horses, and I had a horse in a yard with a Colombian chap, and he had the most beautiful little daughter called Isabella, and she was totally bilingual. But what you then find is quite often they're slightly delayed in both languages until they've really got because they've just got so much more to take on board.
Yeah.
And occasionally he was quite Hispanic, and occasionally he would sort of shout and say, "Well, who's had my so-and-so? Or where's so-and-so?" And this darling little girl, angelic little girl, say, "My was no me. My was no me." Yeah, she's gorgeous. So,
I remember I was in Salford after filming and following this couple, and I could hear the mother speaking to the little girl in Russian. And because the little girl was a little toddler, it was kind of the language I could hear, you know, like, oh, you know, what magazine? There's a shop, and let's go in. And then she started speaking to her dad, and she had the thickest Salford accent when she was speaking to her dad. Obviously, it's, you know, one parent of each. So maybe she'll have an Essex accent and a Siberian. We'll have to wait and see.
Bless her heart. So what's next for you? I suppose you didn't know when you're going to be able to go back to.
I mean, there's a provisional date for July. So when we go back, we won't have any audience, unfortunately. But like the rest of the country, we're just going to play it by ear, because, you know, when we're in the studio, we should be able to be socially distant.
Yes, yeah.
You know, the space in the studio is okay. We can mic ourselves up, but we just have to travel around the country. And Nick I think he's 76, I believe, Nick Hewer. So he's most definitely in his 70s.
Right.
I might have aged him there. Sorry, Nick.
We won't tell.
Only 21, Nick. You'd never know. So yeah, he's got to be a little bit careful. But we're playing repeats at the moment. The countdown's still on, and we've had some Champion of Champions series go on the telly. So at the moment, it shows that broadcast first in 2013. It's a bit of a blast from the past. Yeah. It's quite interesting to see the old ones and how much we've changed.
I was just trying to think how long ago it was that you and I, because we filmed together in Bristol. Do you remember that the restaurant that makes mistakes?
It was the end of 2018.
Was it really? Was it that long ago?
It was that long ago now, because it was before. I'm thinking before I was pregnant. That's how my brain works now. Right. Okay. That was a lovely project.
It was an amazing project, and I remember afterwards going at the back. They had this. So the restaurant basically was all staffed by people with dementia, wasn't it? And there was one lad in his 20s who had a very rare form of dementia, and they took us out to the van. Did you go into the van afterwards?
Yeah, that was the most impactful for me.
Me too, you know, and I'm a GP, and I thought I understood dementia, what it would be like. But you remember they put those goggles on us and prickly things in your feet, and what was the most incredible thing for me was, so we had these funny goggles so you couldn't see properly, muffled sound, mittens and so on, so you couldn't feel things properly. Yeah. And I remember going into that van, and when I came out, I was all disorientated. And when I came out, the guy said, you know, you couldn't do something like that. And I said, no, well, it was too dark. I couldn't see anything. He said, well, what do you normally do when you go into a dark room? And I said, well, turn the light on or open the curtains. And he said, well, nobody told you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And it really hit me like a sledgehammer that actually I had become this very sort of dependent, indecisive being, like a flip of a switch.
Yeah, it was really interesting, because you tend to think of dementia. I think most people tend to think of dementia as memory loss. But like you said, that showed you how different forms of dementia affect totally different parts of your sensory, your hearing, and noises seemed really loud and really scary. And I expected to come out, you know, feeling upset, but with empathy for other people. But I actually cried because it was so disorientating and so quite scary. And yeah, it had a really big impact. I think that's a really good company. I think they go around and they do training to teach people what it's like living with dementia, and also they have a separate one with autism. Yeah, which would be interesting to know what it's like, because you wouldn't expect that. They said, you know, some people take their shoes off because they have really painful soles of their feet. And yeah, it was just scary. And yeah, very, very sad that people have to live with that. But my mum, actually, she used to work at a charity for people with young onset dementia. So that's my link to dementia.
Oh, is that how you got involved with that project?
Yeah, and it was, amazing. Some stories, you'd get the occasional person who had a specific form of dementia and tried a drug, and they were actually regaling the story of how they'd found this drug and it had managed to get something back. And another person who'd had a bump on the head, and they were able to again remember things they didn't before, and how people can't remember what they did 5 minutes ago, but they can sing songs that they learned when they were kids. And it's there's a lot of joy that you can bring to people's lives if you know how to look after people with dementia. And I think that was a fantastic project to show that people, they're still people, they still have worth, you can still speak to them like they're people. And to have a bit more compassion in case you meet someone in the street and they're not quite as you'd expect, just to be aware that could be why.
Yeah, I remember thinking that day, actually, any person who has any involvement with a dementia patient really should spend 10 minutes in that van, because it just gives you a totally different insight, doesn't it? And like you, I'd love to do the autism experience, because I think that would be quite an interesting one too.
Yeah, I think that would be eye-opening as well. I mean, we do have a lot of contestants, people that are fond of Countdown, that come in, that view it and that enjoy it, that are on the autism spectrum. But yeah, I mean, people, these days you really want to help people, don't you? But often you don't know what the right thing to say is or the right thing to do. So projects like that can actually help you understand what this person's life is like is brilliant.
Yeah, one of the things that got me was, I remember somebody trying to feed me, and sort of coming to the side, so you could, because you had these blinker things on, you couldn't see the spoon coming into your face, and just horrible. And then you think, actually, how often have you seen somebody almost sort of being fed and them trying to get away from it, and you just suddenly see it in a totally different way.
Yeah, and especially, I think I remember the one particular lady, she'd been a doctor her whole life, a really successful surgeon, I believe.
Yes. No, I think she was an obstetrician, actually, wasn't she?
I think so. Yeah. And you just to treat people with respect, and I guess a lot of people can unfortunately be patronised or spoken to like their children when they're living with dementia, and just to remember that they're people, and they're most likely a lot of people cleverer than us, know a lot more than us, and unfortunately they're just living with a dreadful disease.
Yeah, I've got a number of patients who still perform very well on their what we call mini mental state assessments when we assess people, but they have come from such a high level of intellect that they're still functioning perfectly well, but actually for them it's becoming a real disability, because they're just not used to not having that degree of intellect. So it's a hideous disease.
It's horrible. It is. And I guess it's one of those things that's a little bit, well, not a little bit, it's underfunded, because unfortunately it's not a sexy disease, and it's often old people that suffer. So Alzheimer's Research UK do amazing stuff, and I think actually we're planning to do a live quiz one of these days with Alzheimer's Research UK. So
are you?
I think so. I think it's in the offing. Yeah, I know. There's some stuff going on behind the scenes. So.
We did some memory walks for them in the summer last summer when we were allowed to get out and about.
Yeah, those are the days.
So what's the rest of the week look like for you? Are you still working from home?
Well, I mean, my working from home, we can't do any countdown or anything like that. So working from home is looking after the baby. So we're just, getting up. We're in our little routine now. I think all the things you're supposed to do about, not feeding them to sleep and et cetera, we've just kind of gone out the window. I'm going to be at home for however long. So whenever she needs feeding, she gets fed. Take her for a walk every day and out, and she loves her sling. So I just shove her on here and she's guaranteed a nap. And, we're just enjoying that side of things. And now I think, like the rest of the country, just got our eyes peeled to see if and when restrictions might be lifted, so we could possibly meet my parents in the park or something along those lines, just to say, here's the baby from a distance. Yeah. But, fingers crossed one day.
I don't think hopefully not too far away. I think it probably all depends on how we all behave now.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I think another one of the problems at the moment with not having too much to do is everyone's on social media. They can just do your head in after a little while, can't they?
Yeah, I must admit, actually, I try and kind of keep away from it at the weekends just to give myself a bit of a break, because I think otherwise you could go a little bit stir crazy, really.
Yeah, there's a lot of people shouting at each other, but I'm trying to do some campaigning still while unfortunately while COVID's happened, it's allowed people that I was unfortunately familiar with through kind of anti-hate work and racist spheres. They're kind of focusing their efforts on COVID misinformation. So there's still work to be done there that you can do from home, and I've been working with people like the Centre for Counter Digital Hate and Stop Funding Fake News, because while work's off, you can still try and do something.
Yeah, positive. Actually, because that's how we got back in touch again, isn't it? Through your work with that. So what do you do with them? Are you an ambassador for that?
I'm an ambassador, yeah. So Centre for Countering Digital Hate are just fantastic. I think they're possibly the only people in the world doing some of the research that they're doing into how hate spreads, how misinformation spreads. And technology seems to always be ahead of legislation. So the problems are created, and then you have to work backwards to how can we stop these problems, getting worse. And the realms that they're looking at are anti-Muslim, anti-migrant, anti-Jewish, anti-women, transgender, all of these spheres. It's kind of a rabbit hole, slippery slope, and anti-vaccinations and now anti-COVID. So people that claim that it's a hoax, it doesn't exist, or that Bill Gates or the Jews were behind it, all kinds of nonsense that it's really hard to disprove properly because it's not based on anything. When you have a theory, it's not based on any facts or rational logic.
The trouble, I think, with social media is it's so easy to say something and hide behind a screen and a keyboard. I always used to, my kids have all grown up now, but I know when they were growing up, I always used to say to them, just take a step back, and before you press send, just say, would I say this to somebody's face? And if you've got any doubt, press delete, not send. You'll never regret it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it can kind of just multiply as well. I think that's the other problem, is it just gets out of control.
I had a message this morning that I looked at, and it was a lady called Sarah and her friend. A really sad story that one of these, you read on Twitter. Her friend's kind of similar age to us. She has 3 children under the age of 5, and she has now terminal cancer. And she did a GoFundMe to try and raise a little bit of money so that when she was having treatment, her children were still looked after and had food, and the abuse she got from that. I mean, you just think if a terminally ill mother of 3 can still get online abuse, then what hope is there? But then this lady was using social media for good to try and help her friend. So it swings and roundabouts, but yes, it's definitely good not to spend all day every day on social media.
Well, now we can go out more often than once a day too. So
yeah. Well, sitting in the park, that was the cheering moment for me. Yeah. Not just walking around all the time, just shoving the baby on the grass and a roll about. That's what we're hoping to do soon. Oh, bless you. Listen, Rachel, thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed having a little chat and a catch up. And let's hope it's not too long before we catch up in person. Yeah, absolutely.
You never know that the restaurant that makes mistakes, they did talk about doing other projects. So, where they did restaurants, they could do other things. I hope so. It was a really positive thing to show what people with dementia can do, not what they can't do. So. Yep.
Well done, Channel 4, for making it.
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, thank you so much. Take care. Look after Pasha and speak to you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
So that was the lovely Rachel Riley, and next week I hope to have 2 very special guests in the form of Dr Pixie and Dr Christian. So don't forget to tune in at 3 o'clock next Monday to Behind the Barn Door. Until then, stay safe. See you soon.